This special education teacher was already facing serious prison time, accused of sexually abusing more than one student. But now we've learned there's a new alleged victim in this case, just a freshman, who police say Nadia Horn also allegedly preyed on. We have the explosive.
This special education teacher thought she deleted the evidence. She was wrong. And the moment police got the TikTok warrant back, that's the moment her entire lie collapsed. She was already facing decades in prison, accused of sexually abusing two students at her own high school, out on a $15,000 bond, and then investigators opened a file from TikTok. I'm Chris Stewart, and this is On the Case, presented by Law and Crime.
The case against Nadia Horn, a teacher from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, just went to a new level. We've been covering this case for the past 3 months, and now we're learning that police believe that there is an alleged third victim who is also a student in this case. And as we lay out for you the allegations facing this teacher that could put her in prison for a very long time, you're going to start to see a pattern that's playing out in how police believe Horn allegedly groomed and courted these young victims.
The case against Nadia Horn, 22 years old, special education teacher, assistant coach for the boys' basketball team at North High School in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, a town right near the Minnesota border. And here's the part that makes this even more disturbing. She graduated from that same high school herself, 2021, just a few years ago.
So let's get into this case. Nadia Horn is 22 years old, and she was a teacher at North High School in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is a town that's not too far from Minnesota. And at North High School, she had multiple positions, it appears. She was a special education teacher, and she was also an assistant coach on the boys' basketball team, according to court records. Now, for as much as you see on social media that she was smiling, she actually had gone to North High School herself. She graduated in 2021. You take a look at this mugshot. This is from her arrest in March, and that really tells you a story of her potentially realizing how much trouble she may be in. And this mugshot was taken before the new allegations this week, so her situation appears to have gotten even more serious.
When we first covered this back in March, there were two alleged victims, two 16-year-old boys, students at the school where she taught. She was arrested, mugshot taken, charged with second-degree sexual assault of a child, 2 counts of child enticement, sexual assault by a person who works or volunteers with children. Charges that alone could put her away for a very, very long time. But police weren't done. Not even close, because while they were going through her phone, they filed a search warrant with TikTok. And what came back changed everything.
Now, this third victim was discovered because police say they filed a search warrant with TikTok, and the information came back, and it showed some very graphic messages that Horn allegedly sent this boy. So let's talk about the investigation here. And that's when police were notified of some odd behavior by Horn at North High School. And this is not an investigation at this point in time that was looking at any sort of sex crime. It was just seen as the line being blurred between student and teacher, because Horn had allegedly bought a student a...
Prosecutors now say there's a third alleged victim, a freshman, 15 years old, a member of the boys' basketball team that Horn helped coach. And just wait until you see what she allegedly sent him. So let's back up and show you how police say this all started, because you're going to see a pattern. This investigation, it didn't start as a sex crimes case. At first, police were just told about odd behavior. Blurred lines. A teacher buying a student a cell phone, an iPhone 14, driving students around town, asking a kid to add her on Snapchat, asking him to hang out after school, go get food. And according to court records, that student, victim 1, he told police he thought it was odd, weird. That's his word.
Here's the boy didn't really know how to feel about it, because according to court records, he said he found her behavior to be odd and weird. Now, at some point in time, that odd behavior did become allegedly sexual and criminal. The student told police that Horn would send him, quote, really revealing pictures. He said they weren't nude pictures, but they were just revealing. She allegedly sent messages saying that seeing the student in school made her body feel a certain way. Now, as of this week, there are now 3 alleged victims of this teacher, and all of them were students at the school where she taught.
He said Horn was his second hour and Husky time teacher. That's like Homeroom Husky is their mascot. And she allegedly started getting closer and closer to him at her apartment. The complaint says, quote, Horn continually got closer to him. He said he felt trapped. He said they did, quote, everything sexual you can do with a person. And that it happened almost every time he went over there, in her bedroom.
Nadia Horn. The first victim claimed that Horn sent him a Snapchat message around 10:30 p.m. on March 24th, which is a Tuesday, asking him to come over. Horn allegedly said something to the effect of, "I shouldn't be asking you this, but will you come over?" Now, the timeline alleges that Horn was sexually abusing multiple students all around the same time this year. As far as the student identified as victim number 2, he was 16 at the time of the abuse, and Horn allegedly admitted to authorities that she had sex with him roughly a week before her arrest, which happened in late March. She allegedly brought victim 2 to her apartment to give him a ride somewhere, which is a similar pattern to other victims that we're seeing in this case.
She allegedly told police she had sex with him roughly a week before her arrest in late March. She told investigators, and this is in the complaint, that victim 2, quote, really wanted it. And she allegedly told them that the first time she had intercourse with victim 2, victim 1 was also present in the apartment. Let that sink in for a second. Because a judge is going to hear that. A jury is going to hear that. If you think that's as bad as it gets worse. Because that's when the TikTok warrant comes back. Police say they filed the warrant and TikTok sent back direct messages from Nadia Horn's account to victim 3. This is a 15-year-old freshman. And these messages, they don't leave anything to interpretation. Damn, with a smiley face emoji. March 14th, my FYP so good I shouldn't want you as bad as I do. FYP, for you, Paige.
Then the next day, March 15th, 10:38 p.m., quote, "Gosh, I hope you know how much I crave you every second." 2 minutes later, "You know how much I'm going to want you every time I see you now." Then a couple minutes after that, oh, expletive, baby, the things I'd do. March 16th, this is 11:36 in the morning. "Baby, need you bad." And it's important to note that that is a
March 15th, 10:38 p.m. Gosh, I hope you know how much I crave you every second. 2 minutes later, "You know how much I'm going to want you every time I see you now." A couple minutes after that, off, baby, the things I do. Then March 16th, Monday, 11:36 in the morning, during school hours when she was supposed to be teaching, when you're supposed to be in class. "Baby, need you bad." And then police say there's a message that is so graphic, so cringeworthy about her private area, that the criminal complaint won't even fully quote it. But right after that, she says, "Yeah, it's never been just one part, all of me. And here's why this is legally damning. Police say in several of these messages, she uses his actual name. She knew exactly who she was talking to. And on March 14th, she writes, quote, "There's not a lot of high schoolers that know High School Musical, but I'm glad you do." High schoolers. She acknowledged she was in high school.
They don't show how the victim replied to her in this conversation. And in several messages, police do note that Horn allegedly uses this victim's name, which will show that she knew exactly who she was allegedly talking to. In another message that is also potentially damning, from a legal perspective, she makes reference to the boy being in high school. On March 14th, she messaged the boy, "There's not a lot of high schoolers that know High School Musical, but I'm glad you do." And victim 3 allegedly replies, "Yes, ma'am."
He replies, according to the complaint, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. He's 15. He's a freshman. He just came out of middle school." And this is the kid, according to the complaint, who told police that Horn was just, quote, too friendly and that she shared a lot about her life, overshared to the point where even a 15-year-old kid knew this was a lot. He didn't know how to process it. That's the sympathy beat that gets lost in a lot of these cases. We're not talking about a 17-year-old senior. We're talking about a freshman, 15. A kid on the basketball team who probably just wanted to make varsity someday. And the adult in the room, the teacher, the coach, the person who is supposed to protect him, is messaging him at 11:30 on a Monday morning while she's on the clock. Police say the TikTok data also shows videos and images were exchanged between them, but they can't retrieve the actual content of those files from TikTok, just that they were sent. Initially, police say victim 3 denied anything sexual happened, which is incredibly common, especially with a 15-year-old boy. Embarrassed, scared, confused. But then later he told authorities the truth, that she allegedly sent him explicit images, that she allegedly performed sex acts over video call, that she came to his house, brought him food, and allegedly sexually abused him after his mom went to sleep.
That Horn sexually abused him, but then later he told authorities that Horn did send him explicit images, and she allegedly performed sex acts over a video call. The victim also says that Horn came to his house, she brought him food, she allegedly sexually abused him after his mom went to sleep. She also says that on another 2 occasions, Horn abused him in her vehicle. And then there's a 4th instance when Horn allegedly sexually abused him at her home roughly 5 days before her arrest. Horn is now facing additional charges in connection.
After his mom went to sleep, he says on 2 other occasions she abused him in her vehicle, and a 4th time at her home, roughly 5 days before her arrest on March 25th. So now timeline, between March 1st and March 25th, police say she was allegedly abusing this 15-year-old at the same exact time she was allegedly abusing the 2 16-year-olds, 3 victims. Same month, same school, all while she was still teaching. So Horn is now facing new charges: repeated sexual assault of a child, use of a computer to facilitate a sex crime, and a 3rd count of child enticement. But here's where her own words might bury her. When police went to her house on March 25th, they asked her if she knew why they were there. She said, quote, "Yeah, school stuff." Said she picked up students from a party and brought them home, and that was a mistake. She admitted to buying victim 1 an iPhone 14, but said it was just to help him out. Said she got close to him because he needed support, food and stuff. Then police got more specific. "Did you have sex with these students?" And according to the complaint, she admitted it. She admitted to having sex with victim 1 3 times. They asked about a selfie she sent that morning. A picture of a pillow with a caption like, "There's room for you here?" She allegedly said, "Oh yeah." Shouldn't have said yeah. They asked if she sent nude photos. She said, "Potentially." Potentially. If you were a judge reading that, your first line would be, "Potentially" is not a defense. It's a confession. And then she told investigators, quote, "It just felt mutual, and she didn't feel like she was taking advantage of the victims." She said she gave them wine at her apartment because they asked for it. This is a 22-year-old teacher talking about 15 and 16-year-old kids asking for wine in her apartment, that she bought a phone for, that she drove around, that she messaged on TikTok saying, "I crave you every second." I brought in former sex crimes prosecutor Dan Shore to break this down because I wanted to know, why would someone put this in writing?
Come out. But one thing that's pretty alarming from the charging document, the criminal complaint, is just how the messages between this defendant and a 9th grader were so explicit, where she acknowledged that they were engaging in sexual activity. She said how she wanted him sexually. She referred to him as a high school student. So if these messages are authentic, which there's no reason to believe they're not, it was not only extremely clear what was happening, it was also extremely reckless of her to put all that in writing. And we've seen that in a lot of cases, and people often wonder, why do people put these things in writing? And that's another component of it that...
And he said something that really stuck with me. He said, "It was not only extremely clear what was happening, it was also extremely reckless of her to put all that in writing." It seems like there was a real problem, that she thought that this was okay, that she could message like that with a 9th grader and get away with it. He said she's putting her entire career, her entire life, in the hands of a 9th grader, because that 9th grader now has the power to end her career. And Dan said this is classic grooming. It's never just one explicit message out of nowhere. It's boundary probing. Can I get away with this? Can I get away with this? Can I get away with a little more? Buying a phone, a ride, food, oversharing about your life, then revealing pictures, then really revealing, but not nude, then explicit messages, then abuse. That's the pattern prosecutors are going to show a jury. 1, 2, 3. Same playbook, 3 different kids. And the fact that she sent these messages during school hours at 11:36 a.m. on a Monday. Dan said that's where the school district could be in serious trouble. He said the biggest liability for a school is when they knew or should have known and were deliberately indifferent. Were there rumors? Did other teachers see something? Did they have a policy banning teachers from deeming students on TikTok and Snapchat outside school platforms? And if they did they actually train anyone on it, or was it just on a website somewhere? Those are the questions an independent investigator is going to be asking you, Claire, right now. Now, let's talk about bond, because this is the part that is making a lot of people angry. After a first arrest in March for 2 alleged victims, her bond was set at $15,000. She posted it. She got out. $15,000 for charges that could put her in prison for decades. I asked Dan, how is she out? And he gave a very honest lawyer answer. He said, generally the point of bond is to make someone show up in court, make sure they don't flee. He said from a defense perspective, the argument is she showed up. She didn't flee. The new allegations aren't for new conduct while she was out on bond. It's old conduct they just discovered via the TikTok warrant, so the conditions haven't changed. But then he said this, and this is the second quotable line. Once she is convicted, if she is convicted, someone has a much higher likelihood of fleeing if they're already convicted and facing definite prison time. So that might be a different situation. Translation, enjoy being out now. Because if a jury sees, I crave you every second sent to a 15-year-old during math class, you're not coming home. And that brings us to the hardest part of this case. Victim 3. Dan said it's very Very common for victims, especially child victims, to not want to testify, to initially deny it out of embarrassment, fear. He said when he was prosecuting, he would bring them into the courtroom before trial, show them where everyone sits, where the court officers are, who will be there to support them, just to make it less terrifying. And that's why Dan said a lot of these cases end in a plea bargain. Because if the evidence is this powerful, and he said these messages are incredibly powerful, the defense might want to avoid a trial where a 15-year-old has to sit on a stand and have a defense attorney examine him about why it took him 2 interviews to tell the truth. But that depends on Horn. Will she take a plea that requires prison time, or will she force these 3 boys to testify? As of right now, she has a new initial appearance on these new charges set for July 28th.
Making her first court appearance, this is per WEAU television in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. The judge initially set her bond at $15,000, and Horn posted that, and she was out of jail as this case moves forward. She has a new court hearing set in the wake of these new charges, and she is next